Hello and welcome to the Team GIS Podcast. This is episode 1 of a 2-part episode in which me and Muzz are just sitting down and kind of putting everybody at ease over the podcast or Muzz's quote initiative and any other projects that may come up in the future. We just wanted to show what it's like being on one of these. It's more of an informal chat, just getting to know each other, our experiences, what we do, what we've done, and I'll just let us take it away. We're doing this episode pretty much just to let people see what being on a podcast is like and try and get more people to sign up for things that we're trying to do in the company. Obviously, me with the podcasts, you with PR stuff such as like quotes and all that. We just want people to see that it's not scary and it's all alright. So we thought we'd do an episode with each other. So, first question I want to ask you, Muzz, is what did you study at uni? And why did you go and study that?
Yeah, so at uni I studied English with creative writing, and that's quite an interesting question to ask, to be honest. It's quite a difficult one. I think what made me go and study it was just because I guess it's a few reasons. So number one, it was just the best subject at school. It was one of those things, like it was the one that I kind of looked forward to and tended to do the best in. So kind of naturally, going on from that, like higher education wise, it felt like kind of a natural transition, I guess, to go into the subject that you were best at school. I think as well, where that came from, kind of, I suppose my aptitude for it was just, I've always been kind of interested in stories and writing and just kind of the way that language works and how it sounds and how it's written. Just love stories and things of that nature. And I think that interest in stories and things like that naturally made me good at English, because that's obviously based a large part around studying books or plays and kind of figuring out how they work and what makes them tick. Mm-hmm. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I was always interested in writing when I was young, but that kind of fell to the side. But it's good that you kept at that and you went and studied it.
Yeah, man.
I used to enjoy English in school, but a couple of bad teachers really put me off and stuff. But I agree, writing's pretty interesting. It's good to be creative.
Yeah, I feel that as well, man. I think that kind of, I was always interested as well in stuff like on the other end of the spectrum, like kind of physics and chemistry and stuff. And I had a few kind of teachers that, as went into hires and things like that, they just weren't, I don't know, they just I couldn't connect with it the same way as I could in kind of, I guess, the lower levels or whatever, and that kind of totally put me off, to be honest. So I totally know where you're coming from. It can just take, a good teacher can make all the difference, but so can a bad one, unfortunately.
Yeah, I found a bad teacher can totally just kill any enthusiasm you have for the subject, which is a real shame, because I really like physics and stuff in school as well. To be fair, my physics teachers were pretty good, but my English teacher, my higher English teacher specifically, just totally ruined everything for me. It was awful. Following on from that, obviously you're doing PR here now, so how are you finding that position? Obviously with your background in writing and stuff, are you finding that's helped you get a foothold for what you're doing? Because I understand this PR stuff's all new for you.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think you're definitely right, there's kind of transferable skills there, because obviously PR is related to advertising and kind of trying to communicate with people kind of externally and internally as well in the company. So kind of having, I guess, at least some kind of grasp and foundation in just the way the language works and kind of how to communicate with people, written and verbally, kind of helps. A lot of this job, I guess, was just for me, in terms of PR and stuff, was just learning on the job. As you say, I'm totally new to it, so I kind of had to come in, I guess, with an open mind. I wasn't sure what to expect, but at the same time, that kind of helped, because I was almost like a blank canvas that you could kind of, I had no kind of preconceived notions, and then I could just absorb all the information that I found on it. So I just did a lot of market research, just how does PR work? What are the things to look out for? So things like the USP, for selling products. And just things like that, how is it different in the digital age? So obviously, as a digital company, we operate slightly differently. So I had to kind of get a grasp on that, because I know about kind of if you see a billboard, that's an advert, obviously, and that's kind of PR for a company. But I had to kind of see how do things work in the kind of 21st century age. So that was quite a learning experience. But I think so far I've done a pretty decent job. I've managed to figure out most things. I definitely like to, still learning, of course, and want to take things further, especially as we kind of develop the MBA program and whatever else. But so far it's been good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I find like most jobs I've worked in the past, you kind of come in with a little bit of like understanding, but I've always found that it's always pretty much learning on the job. And it's good that you've taken the initiative to just like go ahead and do that and learn as much as you can about PR. Obviously you spoke about like some of the challenges you've faced doing that up to this point, but have there been any like good accomplishments that you've done so far?
Yeah, so I think so. So I think the main one that kind of springs to mind is a kind of quotes initiative that you mentioned earlier, that we're working on at the moment. And I think that's been a really like great way to kind of not only get into contact with more people in the company, but also just to kind of get their experiences out in the open. It's so nice to kind of have something to refer to, like what people have actually said, and have something to look at. Like, because I know obviously my experience in the company, but to kind of see as many people as possible, like how they're finding things and room for improvement and things that they've enjoyed. That's been a really, really positive step, I think. And I think that's the main thing that I'm kind of proud of that I've done in the company so far. Just that kind of extra level of communication and openness, which I think is really what is going to make GIS great.
Yeah, because obviously we're all in here through the Kickstart scheme, so I imagine everybody's got a little bit of different experience so far. And it is good, It's good to know how everybody's getting on, like what they're taking away from it. And I think the quotes initiative was a great idea. As you know, I was like one of the first people to like take you up on it and give you my opinions and stuff, and I think it's all been pretty good so far, and like I hope everybody else is taking away something from this, because it's been a good opportunity. Not a lot of folk get to come into something like this, especially with like most people that have come straight out of uni into this job market that's all over the place and doesn't really exist.
It's great to see that everyone, as you say, like people are getting things out of it, and I hope it helps them even just to kind of organize their own thoughts just by even writing it down, at the same time, so they can kind of, because I think so many times in a job you don't have time to slow down and kind of think about like, okay, where am I, what have I taken away from this? And I think just having that little bit, even it's one or two sentences or a couple paragraphs, kind of gives you that really nice, just like something to refer back to, like, okay, so this is how I was feeling at this point, here's what I've done. It's just like something, it's a nice solid thing to look at, kind of see where you came from and where you can go.
I think that's a really hard skill to learn as well, is like self-reflection. Honestly, like you kind of get taught how to self-reflect at uni and stuff like that, but in the workplace, most workplaces don't give you the opportunity to sit down and be like, right, this is what I've done, this is what I've learned, this is what I can take away from this. And
Absolutely.
Like, speaking of the job market and other jobs, where do you see this Kickstart position like landing you in the future, whether you continue to be here or if that's another job down the line? Do you think this has been helpful in giving you that extra edge on like other applicants in the competition?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I think, even just for my job role itself, I never would have considered PR before, because I didn't think that I had the kind of skill set or the personality or whatever else to kind of pursue this field. So I think just even from the job itself, I definitely feel that I'm kind of more capable for, I guess, different job types than I thought I was. I don't know if that'll be, continuing at this company or different places or other Kickstart projects or whatever else, but I do think that PR is something I'm definitely now looking at as a potential, actual career option, which as I say, I never would have thought of before. But yeah, I think as well, I'm really interested just from this company, even though we've not officially got an apartment as well, I'm quite interested in HR and just like how people are finding themselves within the company. Like it's interesting to see how people develop, and I love speaking to people about like, how they're feeling about things and what they're working on. So HR is definitely another kind of option I'm considering, just based on this job, which again, I didn't think I had the skill set for or the kind of background. So I think having this kind of real experience, even though I've not been necessarily trained in it, will kind of give me a bit of an edge over maybe some applicants who haven't had this kind of actual just raw on the job experience.
Yeah. I always find that funny, because like you apply for, like you go and look for jobs and you're like, right, well, I can't do half of these, but you find that maybe you do go and do one of those jobs and you're like, I actually kind of already have a bit of a skill set here. A lot of what I already know from previous experiences is transferable, and then you learn on the job, and now you end up in the position you're in where like you're looking at doing more PR or even like getting into HR in the future, which is great because, as you said, it's not something you ever thought you would have the skill set for. It's not something you would have ever looked at. So I guess it's been good expanding your horizons in that sense.
Exactly, yeah. No, I totally agree. I think as well, which is quite nice, is I didn't come in with the, because obviously with most subjects, there's kind of almost like a standardized training, like here's how you do X, here's how you do Y. Whereas as someone who didn't come in with that kind of PR background, in a way it kind of allowed me to think differently because I had that English background. It wasn't so focused on PR. So say like, you get say 10 applicants for a job, 9 of them been trained in kind of standard PR, and then one's had experience in PR but hasn't come from that kind of training background. That one person's gonna be the one that stands out. So even though they might not know, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I'm an expert by any means, they might not know all the terminology and things like that. They might just have that kind of edge to think outside the box or think in a different way that can really be an asset to any company.
Yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from, because like you apply for jobs that are maybe like specialised to a certain degree. You get all these people that come in and all their applications are basically the same. They all studied the same thing, so they're all saying X, Y, and Z. You always get this other guy who actually has a bit of experience. Maybe he's not got the same background and he's saying the same thing, but slightly differently. It's usually that guy that gets the job because they're like, this guy knows what he's talking about, but he's not totally by the books and super strict about it, like he's willing to learn. I always think that's the biggest thing. See, if you can just show to any employer and in any workplace that, hey, I kind of know what I'm doing, but I'm also open to learn anything. I always think that's like massively important.
Absolutely, I totally agree, yeah.
So that was it for me, just asking you about pretty much your time here and what you've been doing in PR.